you mentioned, what was it, your son before?
Yeah.
My son, when he was 16, 17 years old, he would fight me on everything. Dad, you don't understand, whatever. I said, the only thing we have in common is that I thought I knew everything when I was your age too. Because that's what happens, right? You have these experiences in life. It's just unavoidable. You can't avoid the mistakes. You try and limit them, but you can't avoid, because mentally or emotionally or maturity wise, you're only so far where you are, right? So there's very few people you meet who are, 25 to 30 and really get it all. There are some people, but some of them were slinging hammers when they were 9, and they got life experience when they're very young for whatever reason. Not that they went to college and came out and were like, oh, what's going on in life? I have so much stress. No.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Here we go. Once again, Small Business Adventure Team, the Small Business Safari is in the house, ready to rock and roll. We have an incredible guest who's, believe it or not, for a little while, not from Atlanta and not from Australia and not from Canada.
We've had a lot of Canadians.
We have a lot of Canadians. We're friends.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of Canadians too. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a great guest on because he has the experience that we're all looking for. He actually is a host of the Accidental Entrepreneur podcast, Mitchell Beinhaker, but he goes by Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch is good.
Mitch is good. And he is a business lawyer. Ooh.
He's a New York City lawyer.
I'm a lot of fun in a bar. Actually, I'm in New Jersey. I'm waving into the New York bar. That should be done soon, but I am a New Jersey attorney.
Ooh, so this is ought to be good.
But I drink bourbon, so I mean, it can't be that bad.
So I do actually, one of my best friends and Alan's met him too. He's an attorney, a lifelong attorney. He says, I hate other attorneys. I said, you know what? I said, we hate all
don't you want to go to that bar event? I said, I don't want to go hanging out in a room with 100 other attorneys. What the hell am I going to do that for?
That's exactly what he said
really
too.
Go to bar events, yeah.
Yeah. So, Mitch, we're happy to have you on the show and excited. I've actually been on your podcast.
Yes.
And had a lot of fun because what happened was Comcast took out my internet connection as we were doing this over Zoom.
Yes.
And we had to do the part 2. So I did a wardrobe change. It's what it's going to look like now on his podcast.
Right. The shirt just all of a sudden changed. I mean, we explained what happened, but yeah, it's funny.
But before we get too much into giving everybody incredible business advice, maybe even from the legal side, is this something you want to do right when you started? I mean, how the hell did you get to this point? Did you go to school going, I'm going to be a lawyer?
No, are you kidding me? Somebody just asked me that last night. I was telling the story. I went to Cornell in upstate New York. I was a finance and economics major, I think. And, you're talking 35, 40 years ago. And I was sitting around with a good friend of mine at our fraternity house, definitely drinking. I don't think bourbon, and we couldn't afford that stuff in those days, probably just beer. And I said, well, what are we going to do after school? We were like juniors at this point. He says, I'm going to go to law school. So I was like, all right, I'll go to law school too. So about 2 weeks later, he sobered up and he's like, no, I decided I'm not going to law school. So, I decided, was I just going because he was drunk with me, or do I really want to go? And I didn't want to get my MBA. I didn't feel that was something I really wanted to do. It was more entrepreneurial type of stuff. And I'd always knew that, unlike going to medical school or getting your architectural degree or going to an engineer for an advanced engineering degree, you could go to law school and do a lot of things with a law degree. And my grandmother, may she rest in peace, also always said, go to law school, Michel, go to law school. So to make her happy, I applied and got into some law schools. I was definitely in the upper half of the class, but I wasn't in the top portion of the class. So, and I also needed money. My dad was like, listen, I got to pay for your sister to go to college. So good luck. So my grandmother said, if you go to law school, I'll pay for you to go to law school. So it was great. So I got into law school, got some money. I get this check from my grandmother. This was 1990. I get this check from my grandmother. It's $1,500. I called my grandmother. I said, Grandma, I got the check for the books. Thanks so much. I'll send you the other invoice. She goes, isn't that what law school costs? I go, no, it's about $10,000, $12,000 a year. Of course, now it's like 30 or something. And she's like, oh, well, when your uncle went, it was only $1,500. I said, yeah, that was 40 years ago. So she's like, oh, okay. And she didn't have more than that. So she sent me $1,500 all 3 years. And the rest of it I had to borrow and work and whatever.
Nice. The exact same thing
That's
happened to
the
me.
story.
My dad wanted me to go to the school that he went to. And he said, son, you can go to college anywhere you want. But if you want any financial support from us, then you go to this one. And I'm thinking, I should have been smarter. I mean, we grew up dirt poor. There was no big pile of cash under the bed. And so I ended up going to the school that he steered me towards, and I got a check for $300.
There you go.
Moved cross country for
Thanks,
that too,
Dad.
by the way.
Yeah, but of course, what do you say to grandma? You go, thank you. You don't say,
Yeah.
Did he
grandma.
pay the whole thing, or said he'd pay for you to go to school?
He said, do you think we could sue him? No.
No, statute of limitations. But if he said he was going to pay you to go to school, $300, you're young. That's probably not
Yeah.
Now you're
No,
getting.
no,
now
he said he
getting
carefully
advice.
crafted it. He was a little wilier than I thought. He said, if you want any financial support from us.
There you go. Well,
That's
that was
exactly-
financial support.
It was.
$300. Hey,
Yeah,
he did it. He did.
Yeah, he lived up to
fulfilled
his word.
commitment,
Yeah,
didn't
he did.
Well, actually, I'm saying this. I should let the lawyer say. What say you, lawyer?
About what?
Did
About this?
Did he fulfill his commitment?
Yeah, I think he met his obligation.
Okay.
Doggone it.
Well,
No written agreement. It's kind of hard to prove.
which is good because unfortunately, Alan did lose his dad last year,
So it'd be kind of hard to go after.
and going after
That's
the
already
trust.
the club. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. We're a trifecta then because I lost my mom. So.
Yep.
Nice.
Is the season for us, right, boys?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get this back going, Ryan. So you go to law school.
Yep.
And what I've heard with people who go into law school is you say, okay, I'm going to law school, and maybe you were an accidental lawyer, but they go, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get into trial law, or I'm going to go in and I'm going to get into corporate law, and they
Right.
come out and doing exactly nothing close to it. So
Right.
what did you go in trying to do, and what did you come out doing?
No, I actually came out. So I went in not knowing what I wanted to do. I certainly didn't want to go to court. I wasn't a confident guy. I didn't even do moot court. I didn't do that. And but very early on, I got interested in tax and planning. And my dad was in the life insurance business, so I grew up around that business. And I had said to him, what do you do when you're doing all this planning? And I kind of learned about it. So I got interested in tax planning and estate planning, and took as many of those courses that I could. But the reason that happens, Chris, is that there's really no connection between like taking the entrance exam, going to law school, taking the bar, and practicing. They're like four unrelated events. They're just thinking exercises. So you really aren't really locked into, what you're doing with some exceptions. So I didn't even take evidence in law school. I was taking all these tax courses, and then I realized that I didn't have evidence. I couldn't get into the evidence course. So I went into the guidance office and I said, what am I going to do? How can I practice law if I didn't take evidence? They go, oh, it's not a requirement. You'll learn it in the bar review course anyway. And he was right. I learned enough to pass the bar, and whatever. So then you learn it on the job. So yeah. So I came out kind of doing what I do. When you go to law school, you don't really practice on your own. There was this book floating around at the time, how to start your own law firm, because not a lot of kids were getting jobs, or they were making very little money.
This
But
is
we were
early 90s, right?
Yeah, it was like right, exactly,
Yeah.
92.
So, yeah,
So-
this is about the time I came out.
I had friends getting a job for $19,000 a year in New York City, per diem work. So I was just like, who starts? You don't start your own law school, law firm. That's ridiculous. We went to law school. We're going to get a job, right? And nobody. But and then you find next part of it is you're 50 years old and your buddy loses his job at the law firm and says, "Hey, can I come work for you?" And you say, "Do you have a book of business?" And he goes, "No, I don't have a book of business." And you're screwed. So.
So did you come out and start your own law firm right away?
No, I went to work for insurance companies and insurance agencies. I lived in Columbus for 3 years. I really didn't start practicing law until like 90, almost 2000,
Okay.
practicing on my own. I did some stuff on the side, but I was mostly in-house for financial companies,
Okay.
doing business planning, estate planning, things like that.
All right. So you were in the corporate world. You were doing your thing. You were counsel, general counsel, if you will, but helping all insurance companies
yeah.
doing those things. And off you go. When did you cut the cord and start your own law firm? You said
Yeah, when I
1990.
I went to work for like insurance and financial agencies, locals with a lot of salespeople. They'd be bringing me in on business cases. So people would start walking into my office. Chris is my client. He needs a business agreement. Can you do an operating agreement, buy-sell agreement, non-qualified deferred comp agreements, all kinds of stuff, wills, trusts. I just got so busy there that I was like, well, I don't even want to, I don't like sales. I mean, I like sales. It's fine, but I didn't want to do the product side of it. I liked the creative side of it and the law. And I was just so busy. I probably work with 100 financial advisors in New Jersey doing a lot of work with them and all kinds of other people that I work with. was just a natural kind of progression. I gave up all my licenses. I didn't want the compliance issues anymore. And then opened a little office within the agency I was, and eventually moved out, took my own space. I've had partners over the years, different things. Now I'm solo doing my own thing because I've been doing this long enough. So
gotcha. So
kind of process.
So when you take, you've talked to a lot of people and you've given advice and obviously learned a lot of advice on the podcast.
Yeah.
As you took that leap, one of the things I'm interested is, did you take a book a bit? Did you have business year one? Were you breaking even and making money?
Nope. I had connections. I knew guys who were in the financial business who had clients that needed wills, trusts, business work, whatever. So I had that market, but no, I had a buddy took me, must have been like 96, 97 to a networking event. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, why? we would prospect for business. That's what we do. You prospect for clients. So I went to this event. He took me under his wing, taught me everything I knew about. He was also in the title business. So he taught me everything I knew about real estate, closings, and started making some extra money doing that. And he just introduced me to all kinds of people. And ever since then, I've been very good at introducing other people and networking. And I speak about it, write about it. My first guy on my podcast was a good friend of mine who taught me about networking. He's written books on it. He died last spring, unfortunately, but he, the Godfather.
We talk about that quite a bit on the podcast, and that's how Alan and I actually met. Was through
death or networking?
Well, we talked a lot about death layers of late, but that's how I met. We didn't meet through death. We did meet through networking. Networking death.
Yeah,
we networked to death.
Two sides.
We did
the
that.
same coin, right?
But when you first get into it and try to figure out what it's like, especially coming from the corporate world, you're like, "What the hell is this?" Walking around, "Hey, what's your name? Hey, what do you do?"
Right.
Hey, who gives a shit?
Yeah, exactly. Only like aluminum siding and tin roof salesman.
Right.
Yeah,
Coming up with your clever elevator pitch.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But the world's changed now. That's the thing. Everyone does it now. You're in groups. That's how you connect with people. LinkedIn. It's crazy.
I've got two coins there. I've got the coin that says, "Hey, Dad, that was a good idea," and I'm not just TV dad. My son actually got a job through my networking because I introduced it, and he has been introduced. My daughter, who wants to be in the healthcare field and PA, she goes, "No, Dad, you don't understand. Networking doesn't work in the healthcare field," and I just want to absolutely just beat her head against the wall. I know. Right. So obviously, networking helped you in the beginning. You're a big fan of it as well, and you do it. Today, where you are established, you've been doing this for years, so you don't need to network at all anymore, right?
Right, of course. The moment that you close your eyes and say, "I don't have to do this anymore," the business completely stops. I think even in my dad's career, he'd been in the insurance business since 1965. I think he got to a point where he thought "Oh, I don't have to prospect anymore. Business is just going to keep coming in." And then he realized that is not true. No way. You just got it. You have to keep connecting with people. You have to stay relevant. They think you just dropped off the face of the earth. And that's part of the thing. You just get better at it. It gets easier. You have bigger networks. You go to events and half the people now, as opposed to the room being, unfamiliar. I used to go to events, just be uncomfortable. I didn't know anybody, but I was like, I got to get out there. I got to pay my bills. I got kids. They eat every day, at least, once a day, sometimes more than once a day. And you had to get out there, do stuff. So you'd get out of your comfort zone and get out there. I remember when I was young and I would come home and I have an event at night, or my wife's like, "What are you going out for? You're not home." Now, when I get home at 5, my wife looks at me and is like, "What are you doing home?"
Yeah.
I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "There's got to be an event you can go to, right? There's got to be somebody you can meet, get out there, talk to people." She understands where the business comes from and how it comes in. I rarely get people just calling me off the internet. I get some of that from SEO and postings and blogging and stuff like that. Local people search. I do a lot of Google reviews, but I don't just get I'm not doing pay-per-click advertising.
How many events a week do you go to?
I have, I probably have 2 or 3 regular groups, and then I pick up a couple of other meetings here and there. So probably 3 to 5, depending on the week per week. During the pandemic, I was probably 6 to 8 and doing 40 one-on-one Zoom chats because all my clients were closed because of the pandemic. They're all business clients. So there was nobody to talk to. I figured, well, I'm not going to, fall off the face of the earth during pandemic. Just keep talking to people and just keep networking, connecting. So I do a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Go back to when you were starting the business. You again started with 0 clients. Yeah. And of course, everybody thinks if you were listening to this, you probably were thinking the answer was, "Oh, I got at least 100." And I was breaking even year 1. I'm like,
I wish. No.
If you remember my story, it was me being the smartest guy in the room. 16 months, no problem, got this.
Yeah,
how many
overnight
clients?
success.
0. Hey,
I did have a little bit
24.
of a transition. I was working for a company and I was still doing work on the side. So I had a salary. The one was going up, the other was going down. So it was a little bit of a transition. But once I hit the street, and in the work that I do, a lot of it's one-off. I mean, now I do a lot of regular stuff. I have retainer clients. People pay me every month. I'm available to them. I handle all their stuff. In those days, no, I do an agreement for you. Alan needs a will. How soon do you need another one? So I would always be looking for new business.
So before you started it, you and I talked about in the podcast with me, I was, pretty thoughtful, did the business plan. Did you have a plan in place? And did you have a direction you were going to go? Did you really think through what the 3, 5, 10-year plan was going to be?
Kind of, yeah. But it's, I've done all kinds of different plans, strategic planning, but it's changed over the years. Partnerships break up and then you decide you want to go in this direction, or I find an area of the law that I like that I start learning. I just recently got into cannabis law because I had a couple of clients that looked interested, became legal in New Jersey. So I don't do the compliance stuff, but I do general work for, those companies. And so, kind of goes in different directions. But yeah, I did have a vision and a strategic plan of, okay, if we have so many attorneys doing so much business, and then we'd have a structure and how to run the law firm, how we're going to market the firm. Some of it's still with me, and some of it has morphed and changed.
So your plan was to bring in junior associates and have them work under your law practice and work up and have lawyers.
For a time it was. Yeah. For a time it was. But, after a while, I realized I was making less money doing that, and I'm better off. And now I know I can plug anybody in I need. So I try and run as light as I can nowadays.
See, that's a hard lesson, I think, for all of us to learn when we first start our business, is that we think bigger is better. And really sometimes
definitely not better. Right.
Right. You've got to you got to have the processes in place. And especially in my business, I'm up to 44 employees, and you're like, oh, this must be, but wow, Chris, you're ton.
You must be wealthy. Yeah.
Wow.
It's what you keep, not what you make.
Yeah.
I learned that very early on. So, because we had a point where we're doing, I don't know, $1.5 million, $2 million of gross revenue for a small firm. We had a couple of attorneys, but net, we were very low. Now our net was pretty good. I had friends who were doing 5-6 million in their firm, but they had, 40 employees and 7 attorneys. They were so top heavy. Employee heavy that they weren't keeping a lot of money. It was months that the partners didn't get any money. I said, how's that possible? They weren't managing themselves well. So, gross revenue and size doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I think that's another great point. But it's easy to say it now, after 15 years, and in your case, doing now practicing law for over 20 years on your own, right? 25? If I count
30, close, over 30 years.
Over 30.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm horrible. Did I mention I was master's mechanical engineer? Yeah. And
I don't know how you missed that.
And people are counting me right before we were coming on this call. Right. People are counting me.
2023, by the way.
I do. I'm off on that too. People are counting me to put a beam in their house to make sure the house doesn't sink. So,
good luck.
But yeah, so they're in trouble. But you've been doing it, and it's hard to say that. If you went back to yourself 30 years ago and go, "Hey, Mitch, you're going to think getting bigger is better, but don't do it." You would have been, "Hey,
isn't that the journey of life? You're mentally not capable." You mentioned, what was it, your son before?
Yeah.
My son, when he was 16, 17 years old, he would fight me on everything. Dad, you don't understand, whatever. I said, the only thing we have in common is that I thought I knew everything when I was your age too. Because that's what happens, right? You have these experiences in life. It's just unavoidable. You can't avoid the mistakes. You try and limit them, but you can't avoid, because mentally or emotionally or maturity wise, you're only so far where you are, right? So there's very few people you meet who are 25 to 30 and really get it all. There are some people, but some of them were slinging hammers when they were 9, and they got life experience when they're very young for whatever reason. Not that they went to college and came out and were like, oh, what's going on in life? I have so much stress. No.
Right? It's tough. I've got 3 sons. They all have an IQ that's probably double mine. And I have to tell them, look, you may actually be smarter than me, but what you don't have is perspective.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't replace
of the 3, how many of them listen to you?
None.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Over 3.
Yeah, because their intelligence gets in the way.
I would have said 1. I thought 1 out of 3 have, but all right.
They're coming around.
My son's coming around. Now he's like, oh, Dad, you were right. Said it enough times eventually.
You're like, can you say that over more slowly so I can record it?
Yeah. And can I have your mother hear that?
Yeah, that's right.
Wait till your mother comes in the room.
So looking back on your career, what was if you went back to it and said, I want to relive this year, this is the period I wanted to be in again. What was the most fun you had, and why was that fun?
Geez, I don't know. It's all a blur at this point.
I know.
I think,
actually, I can't even answer that question.
Living in Columbus was fun. We were young. doing a lot of stuff. I was traveling around a lot, but it got old quick, waking up in a hotel room and not realizing where the bathroom is because you think you're home. That type of stuff, that got old quick. But I don't know. We were at a crossroad where we could have ended up in different parts of the country. It would have been interesting to see how that played out. I was interviewing with a firm in California, Newport Beach. I was interviewing with a firm. This is when I was in Columbus. I was interviewing a firm in Miami or Coconut Grove, I think, near Fort Lauderdale, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And a firm back in East, my dad was affiliated with. And the firm in California, they were doing this concept where it was just when CPAs were kind of coming into the financial services business. They were going to build this whole kind of model to support CPAs. I didn't think it would really work. It folded 3 years later. They closed up shop. And then the one in Florida, they made me an offer. And I said, okay, that's great. Just send me a contract for me to review. And we don't work on contracts here. And I go, well, I'm not uprooting my whole family and moving to South Florida. He goes, well, you trust me, right? I go, no offense, but you could die or sell the company or whatever. So that was a pretty lucrative offer. And I turned that down. 6 months later, he sold the company.
Oh my God.
I don't think it was because I wasn't there. I'm not going to give myself that much credit. So he sold the company and, I don't know what would have happened. So, then I went to this other firm and then, migrated. You're always reinventing yourself. I always find isn't
that fun? I have to say those are probably, when you look back on it, some of the more fun times. For me, it was, growing the business. While it was hard in the beginning, there was just days where I went, man, I'm so glad I'm not sitting in a stupid meeting right now. And I'm out here talking to this customer about their bathroom and then driving over and seeing a deck that my guys had built and went, you know what? I'm having a good day. And the sun was shining and traffic was nice in Atlanta, almost like heaven. But usually like
birds were chirping.
Yeah, birds were chirping.
Exactly.
I think the Masters was calling.
My favorite time is now because I have some of the same challenges that I did 10 years ago, but they're my battles. I'm not dealing with it for somebody else or for a partner or trying to bring business in for everybody. And, I'm getting to the point where I do get bigger opportunities and I do meet more people because I have a lot of experience and I am getting exposure. I'm doing some federal tax stuff now that came to me because one guy who ran the program got sick and somebody said, well, we need an attorney to do this. Who knows this stuff? And one of the guys in the group said, I know this guy for 20 years. That was me. And he knows all this stuff. And they called me and now I'm involved in this whole thing. And it could be it's growing, but it could be a really lucrative opportunity. And, that wouldn't have come from me to me unless I had the experience that I've had, the networks that I've grown, the people that I've come across, and the opportunities that I've taken advantage of. So I think right now is probably
cool.
With the exception of having lost my dad in December, I didn't like that. But, I like the control I have on my life and I don't have to, worry about
and things have branched out for you, it sounds like. I mean, you've got this podcast and
so let's talk about that.
You're writing a book. I mean,
Yes, let's talk about
thing.
Why are you doing the podcast? What have you enjoyed? Why? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm doing the podcast because you got to market yourself, right? And I like podcasting just like you guys do. So one day, and if you listen to the podcast, I probably told this story 400 times, so you can criticize me later. But I listened to a lot of podcasts, history podcasts and business, especially all the business war podcasts and stuff. So I was watching a video with Pat Flynn or something like that. And he's like, you can start a podcast for $75. I'm like, don't you need like studio people and, like big mics like this? So there was like in the show notes was the equipment. So I went and bought the equipment. It was really crappy equipment. Didn't sound very good if you listen to the early episodes. And I was like, we're going to do a podcast. My partners at the time were like, what? Like, why are we going to do that? I said, well, you're not going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I started interviewing people and I realized that I was good at it and I enjoyed it. And I was like, this is going to be our marketing thing. And we tried some different things before I came up with the Accidental Entrepreneur. Then when I went back out on my own, I took it with me. But it's the core of my marketing. Like the book I'm writing with a co-author friend of mine who's a publicist because he pushed me to do it. It took us 3.5 years. I would have never done it without him. But you got to have some collateral material. I do blogging and stuff. But that's why it all supports my legal practice, really. I told you I have sponsors now with the podcast. It's like $50 a month. They cover my expenses.
I'll tell you what, it sounded good. In fact, it sounded like a Pepsi Coca-Cola deal where I thought,
exactly.
I thought you were NIL it.
Spotify.
Yeah, I figured you were getting the whole thing. The whole.
I'm holding out for that 115 million with Spotify though.
See, right? Yeah. See, I'm not the only one. I'm
got to dream big, Chris.
I'm not even going after Rogan. I just want Smartless. Yeah. Bateman. I'm taking those guys out.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out. That one.
Smartless. It is. Those guys are good, but as Alan has pointed out, they can get some serious A-list celebrities, and they just go off the cuff and go, "Hey, super secret celebrity, boom! It's J.J. Abrams, boom! It's the guy who wrote Avatar, who
They have
directed
access to
Avatar,
these people.
Cameron, yeah, and they go back years, and they know each other, have known each other for years. Like, oh yeah, I know him. Oh, well, we're all
It's funny
good
you say
friends.
Jake Bateman and Will Arnett.
Yeah, Bateman, Arnett, and
Sean Hayes.
Sean Hayes. It's good, Smartless. It's
Smart.
I have to say there are some really good interviews in there. They had Woody Harrelson on. It was good. I mean, I find it's good. It's for me after grinding on podcasts where you're trying to do self-development. After a while, you're like, you know what? I'm sick of getting better. I just
want to I want to giggle.
Dak Shepard. He's got a lot of people on there. Actually, did you watch Ted Lasso?
Oh yeah.
So Roy.
Right.
You know, Roy is probably the funniest character on
Roy
TV.
Kent.
Cheers, Roy Kent. He doesn't talk like that. He's this guy, Brett Goldstein, is a Jewish guy from England, and he's got a podcast called "Films I Want to Be Buried With," and he's got some good people on the podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have really dug in on that whole Ted Lasso thing. I've actually used it to. I do it to train my folks with a couple of the messages they get from it, and it's it's a story that if my kids were back in high school, I would make them watch that with us. Because there's just so many great life lessons in there, and it's packaged really with great humor.
Very well done.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, and after all that, they get to go to the White House. Did you see that move?
No,
they went to the White House.
Are they going to the White House?
They did already. He shows up. Yeah, she's doing the press secretary is doing a conference, holding a deal with all the reporters, right? And he comes in and goes, "Hey guys, I didn't know you guys were doing this." Next thing you know, he's up there basically doing a bit. And the reporter in Ted Lasso from the Independent,
the guy with the long hair,
who was always nailing him,
Trent Green.
Yeah,
they planted him.
Right, Trent Green.
Trent Green. They planted him in there, and he said, "I'll take one question." He goes, "You sir," and here it was. Boom, he pops up. And
it's so funny.
It's on social media. And I was like, it was great. And, yeah, I mean, in fact, it made the White House look funny.
If I was the president, I would invite all the people that I wanted to meet, all the famous people I wanted to meet. Just
absolutely.
Because I am the president. Hey, I've always wanted to meet you. Oh, Mr. President, of course, come on in.
Of course, come on in.
All right. So the podcast, the book, doing all that to help promote.
What about the
business? Yeah. So what is the book about?
The book is called 10 Ways to Get Sued by Anyone and Everyone.
I love that.
Owner's Guide to Staying Out of Court. So it's all the things you should be doing so you don't get in trouble with your vendors, with your partners, with your employees, with OSHA, with, Okay.
So I like it, but I'm going to.
You want a copy of it?
Of course. I like it, but we got to make it just a little shorter.
Should be on Amazon next. Yeah. Should be on Amazon next month. Well, my buddy Barry, he's right. He's doing this like 10 ways series. So he says, well, we want to do 10 ways something. And I said, it's got to be a catchy,
I love it.
Run your business.
So can you drop a couple of nuggets or do you have to read the book? Give us a teaser.
Yes, I'll tell you, the book is not a parable. It's it's got paragraphs that you can use, chapters you can use for different things. So it talks about, having a written business plan, always having agreements with your partners, dealing with clients and vendors in writing, making sure that you document things. I interviewed a lot of attorneys in there, a divorce attorney about what happens to your business if you get divorced, an employment law attorney. We have some bonus chapters if you actually do get sued. We talked to some litigation attorneys, collections, all that types of things. But the main theme is, which I always talk about, is make it a habit in business to put things in writing. Like you didn't do that with your dad, so you have no way to prove that he should have paid for your tuition because he made this statement or whatever, and nobody ever remembers anything. I interviewed a memory expert in the book too. So,
oh my God, a memory expert.
Yeah, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah. What's his name? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's what I said. What's your name? So his technique didn't work for me.
Back in the day, my wife has a horrible memory, and she bought these cassette tapes on how to build your memory.
Yeah, and Kevin Trudeau, right?
Kevin Trudeau, who eventually ended up going to jail, right? So she gets these. Oh yeah, for tax evasion or something. Of course, I can't remember.
He forgot to pay his taxes.
He couldn't remember to pay his taxes. Exactly.
So, but I said, hey. So one time she's listed these things. She has a horrible memory. I'm like, I'm the one who has to remind her when our anniversary is, which is awesome, gentlemen. Because
very rare too.
Yeah, I love this because I'll say, no, we were supposed to be in the basement drinking bourbon tonight, doing podcasting. She goes, I don't remember you telling me that. I'm like, oh yeah. So I said, I came up to her. I'm like, hey, you said those cassette tapes about memory. Where are those things at? She goes, yeah, I can't remember.
Remember.
I said, oh, I see that thing's really diving in. And then he came up with another book, and then bang, I forget why he was in jail because I didn't read the cassette But that's awesome. Going back to this. So you interviewed a memory guy.
Yeah. I had on my podcast too.
Here's the parable. If you would have interviewed me, I've been in business for 15 years. I've been in business. I've been served now 4 times.
There you go.
Yeah. So in fact, the first time I got served, one of the guys went, "Really? It took you 8 years? That's pretty good." I said,
"Yeah."
The second time first time I got served by the sheriff in the office, comes in. It was a frivolous lawsuit for somebody who actually had bamboozled me, and they knew for $50 they could at least get me served. And I had to go show up at court, and of course they didn't, because they knew they didn't do any print advertising they were supposed to for me, because none of the cards ever came out. I had seated a bunch of my friends in this to see if they actually did it, and nobody got it. I didn't get it. I figured maybe she had just taken me out. No, nobody got it. So she never mailed it. So I got the money, got back. Anyway, my wife's like, at a certain point in my time, not that my business has always been rosy, and I've shared this before, it's not rosy, but she said one time, she goes, maybe it's time for you to give this up and go find something that you can make money at. I'm like, I think we're right at it. I think I'm right there. And she's sitting in the office at my front door, and we're in this house. She's in her office. Our office looks at the front door. Ding dong. Here, are you Chris Lalvani? I'm like, yes, I am. He goes, okay, this is for you.
You've been served.
And she's looking at me, I'm like, oh my God.
Right. That was not proving your point.
I said, this is not helping. Yeah. This is not helping at all.
If you're going to play in traffic, you're going to get hit, right? I mean, it's just a question about it. So
yeah, there you go.
Served 2 or 3 times that I can remember,
So when you talk about, I got a question for you, getting things in writing. And so I'm in commercial real estate, and there's just a lot of verbal back and forth between the agents. And sometimes it's in person. Most of the time it's on the phone. Sometimes you come to agreements on things via text, via email.
You're talking about like letters of intent, like purchase.
Yeah, not even that far along, but just various commitments. I mean, is a text, is an email? Oh, okay.
Not enforceable.
Really? At all?
Very hard. Very hard. I mean, you'd have to have.
Wait. Ellen wants to ask again. Ellen wants to see if I ask the question a little bit differently, will you say yes?
I'm trying to jog his memory. Maybe his memory classes didn't stick.
No.
Still no. No matter what I say, it's no.
Still no.
Look, I do clients come to me and say, I lent money to this guy for his business, and I said, all right, well, where's the agreement? Well, we don't have an agreement, but I have a lot of text messages. Can you make a contract out of that? You could try. I mean, you would sue the guy, and then you'd have to submit this to evidence, and the judge would have to look at it. You'd have to cobble together some sort of an agreement. And the judge's job, or the mediator, or whatever, his job is to kind of settle this thing. So he said, well, you promised this and you promised that. But if you don't really, first of all, there's an issue about detrimental reliance, right? So if you don't really rely on any side of a misrepresentation, the question is, what are the damages, right? You can always breach a contract. That's not illegal. But then the question is, there's a lot of terms missing, right, from that verbal representation. So it becomes very difficult, and courts are very hesitant to enforce those kind of things. Although I do have a guy in my town who was, I think he started like in HUD housing in Florida when he was like 16 years old, came over on a boat from Ireland. He's now worth a lot of money. He's a very wealthy guy. He bought this building in town from another property owner who needed money. And they did it at a bar, and they signed a napkin. And then the guy balked on the thing. And this guy, he's got money, got his attorneys after, and then they got the building for whatever, half of what it was worth, because the guy needed money.
But it was on the napkin.
Yeah, well, they got it enforced. Probably but their threat was probably like, we're going to sue you so long, you're going to tie up this building. We're never going to see the light of day. So that's probably how it goes.
All right, Alan, what is the lesson you just learned for everybody? Go ahead and share.
That you can't do it on a text, but you can do it on a napkin.
That's exactly right. All right, everybody. Exactly. Remember, you want to get a binding contract, right? Put it in a napkin. Mitch supports that. Napkins, just yes.
Careful about
text and emails, no.
And that's why the real estate business is, basically done in writing, right? Any transaction you do has to be in writing. There's statute of frauds and things like that. So it's hard to enforce. Like, you told me that I can have 25% of the commission. If you had an email that said that, or a text, that would help. It would help more than having nothing.
We're coming towards the end, but one of the things, and I've really enjoyed talking with Mitch as we've gotten to know each other. In fact, when you come to Alpharetta, I'm horning in. I'm coming into the family.
Going to Roswell, right? We go for drinks.
Of course we are. We're going to go down to Gate City. And we're gonna hook up with another guy we had on our podcast who is down there. if you were right now here, I know, as we all know, ideas don't make great businesses. Processes, dedication, devotion, working things out, problem solving. That's what makes it. Going forward for the next 4 or 5 years, I haven't asked anybody a lot of this, but I just think he's got a great perspective. If you're in business or you're thinking about getting into business, where would you recommend people go, or how would they go about it?
To start, you mean? Like they have an idea?
Yeah, I got an idea.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that everybody gets too in love with the idea that they have, because that's what gets them all jazzed up, which is great. If you're not jazzed up, you're not excited, you're not going to follow through. But they don't really take the time to, and you don't have to do a formal business plan, but they don't take the time to work through the idea of what it is, how we're going to produce it, where we're going to market it. Is there a market for it? What are the actual costs of running this business? If you want to open a shop that sells little items, how many of those items do you need to sell? And what price can you sell it at? And I think a lot of people don't work through it. And the next thing you know, they're kind of so far down the road, and they've committed money to it and emotions to it. And they've told their friends, and they kind of have to go forward, and they don't see any of the problems that are coming. They might've been able to avoid them if they worked through them ahead of time and did the work, but nobody wants to do the work. Nobody wants to write a business plan, and you have to write it and use it and work it and think about it and then test it and market it and make some more phone calls and don't talk to 6 of your friends. That's not market research.
Right.
That's a great point.
50 people that you know, talk to 100 people. The best guys, people that I've had on my podcast, or that are clients of mine that are really good at what they do and are always growing, are constantly checking with their customers or people that didn't do business with them or whatever, to find out why they didn't do business with them or why they did do business with them. And 9 times out of 10, it's not the reason that the person thought it was that drove them to do business with you. So you got to always be asking those questions, or it's going to catch up with you and you're going to go the wrong way thinking that's the way to go. I know what people want. That's like the death knell of any business. I know what people want. What are you kidding me?
All right,
you will not know what your customers want. That's
so you're saying I shouldn't invest in cryptocurrency and just sit on the sidelines and watch my money grow?
You could do it. Well, it won't grow. You could watch your money. But,
I don't even know what the hell it is. That's what I'm asking. I mean, I'm just trying
I
to.
don't think anybody does.
I tell you, that's if I learned that early on. I had somebody tell me that once at the bank. When I first got into banking, I didn't know anything about it. I was just there to be the fix-it guy. I was a process guy. And these guys would wow me with all their big talk about credit risk and managing risk and, everything about earnings calls, which, I've ended up having to do all the reports for. And one guy looked at me and went, "You know what, Chris, you're a pretty smart guy. If somebody can't explain it to you where you don't understand, where you can't understand it, they don't know what they're talking about.
right.
And you shouldn't just buy their bullshit." And we didn't say that in the banking world. Not
Bullshit.
we didn't say that word in the Southeast. Which I did.
That's a great piece of advice, though.
But think about that for a minute, because if somebody can't explain it to you well enough where you can understand it,
Don't do
then don't do it. This goes to
Right.
SEO. This goes to marketing. This goes to hey, I got this next great idea, and somebody comes in and says, "Let me build you this website." Well, what's the website going to do for me? Oh, it's gonna get you to first page on Google, and it's going to get you to SEO. You're like, well, wait a minute. There's only one page on Google. How am I going to get all the way to the first one?
Right. Doesn't make sense.
Wait a minute. Does that make sense to me? No. I think you're full of shit. So yeah, I think that's a great litmus
I
test.
had friends who are like, "I'm going to invest. You should invest in cryptocurrency." I'm like, I don't even understand what the hell it is. I'm not investing in something I don't understand, because you'll lose your money. Don't invest in businesses you can't understand. You can't explain.
I watched 5 YouTube videos and I still cannot explain it.
I've asked tons of friends of mine, and they can't explain it to me in a way that makes any sense.
I
It goes back to the Warren Buffett thing, right? I mean, it sounds like
Right.
what you're saying, Mitch.
Yeah. He only invests in things he understood.
I was waiting for you to say it.
Yeah.
We're not going to get Buffett on. I don't think I want him on. He's getting old. He doesn't. He's not with the times. He's not hip.
Yeah. Turn him down.
Probably
Wanna come
doesn't
on the
like
show.
burgers.
He actually, as people reach out to me, he said, "Hey, he's flying into Atlanta. Wants to meet with you." I'm like, "Sorry, guys, can't do that. Turn the jet around."
Tell Warren I'm just not available.
I'm a little too busy, Warren. Can't have great advice from you right now.
You know the story about the guy who owned, I guess it was ExecuJet in Rich Santulli. Know the story where?
No, I don't know
No.
that one. Go ahead.
So it was like around his birthday time. He gets his call, and his secretary says, "Warren Buffett's on the phone." No, he says, "Mr. Buffett's on the phone." It was his birthday. He was a big Jimmy Buffett fan. And he's like, "Oh, buddy of mine probably got Jimmy Buffett calling." He gets on the phone and says, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?" The guy says, no, it's Warren. And he's like, Warren Buffett? He goes, yeah. And we want to buy your company, but I want to know what, I don't know, they bought it 15, 20, $30 million, but I want to know what are the 2 or 3 things you need that you haven't been able to do. He said something like, well, first of all, we haven't been able to get Boeing to make jets for us. Warren says, hold on. They conference called the head of Boeing. He says, Chris, you're going to be making friends. We're buying Mr. Santuli's company. You're going to be making planes for him. And he says, you got it, Warren. And then he said, the other problem is we have trouble landing in Heathrow. He conference calls the Secretary of Transportation in London and says, I'm buying Mr. Santuli's company. We're going to need to land in Heathrow. He says, no problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's back to me making really bad decisions, which I'm very good at that. I'll take Warren's next call.
Yeah,
definitely. It won't be, and even if it's Jimmy Buffett, I would take that call too.
I would too. Wouldn't you? I mean, again,
sure. I love Key West.
Fact,
it's one of my favorite places.
I actually wouldn't even talk fun stuff with him. I would talk. I mean, why did you come up with this whole idea for business? Because everything I've read about you is all about. I didn't care about business. I just wanted to.
Margaritaville. That's him, right?
Yeah. So
Land Shark, I think, is part of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so he's got his tentacles and all kinds of stuff. All of a sudden, you're like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of a big deal now.
He's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd have him on the podcast. I know it's hard.
That's good. I'm glad you came to that.
We got a long list. We got Mitch. Now that we've had Mitch, we got Mitch. So now we've cleared out the big stuff. Now we'll start working on the smaller fish.
Right. So we'll get to Jimmy eventually.
All right, Mitch. I've enjoyed this, man. This has been a lot of fun. We're definitely going to keep talking, but for the podcast, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Before we get into the 4 questions that we want to ask you.
Oh boy.
I believe. Oh yeah.
Timed.
They are going to be rapid fire, and they've got to be well thought out, and they have to be real good treatise on what's going to happen, because you're a lawyer. We expect big words.
No pressure.
I want big 10-cent words that I don't understand. All right. So
big New Jersey words.
Before we do that, what do you want to plug for us? We're going to put everything in the show notes. Obviously, you got your law firm, but tell us what else you want us to plug.
No, we mentioned the book's coming out. Should be available on Amazon. I'm hoping sometime in May. We're waiting on the publisher. He's been a little slow, but I'm not J.K. Rowling, so he's not giving us attention. But it should be out late May, probably. If you want, I do a live show. I stream on YouTube and LinkedIn at 10:30 the 3rd Thursday of the month, Eastern time. Not every week, just that one week. And and you can find me on Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube.
The Accidental Entrepreneur. I love
it. Got it.
I know it. We all are, by the way. So that's awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Mitch, we got to jump into this because I can't wait to get it. Or the first thing is, and this is actually going to be for me because I've started listening to less podcasts and a little bit more audible. I just finished Bob Iger's book, Ride of a Lifetime. Really good. Not that I'm the size of Disney.
My son's graduation. He's an IU grad.
Is he? Oh, yeah. So your son went to Ithaca?
Yeah. No, IU, Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought he went to Ithaca. Okay. Anyway. So
the graduate.
That's right. He's amazing, dude. Wow.
Yeah, he was a great speaker.
The book was phenomenal for me. Anyway, but what book would you recommend to our audience?
I like a lot of my favorite book is called The Referral of a Lifetime by Tim Templeton. It's one of the Ken Blanchard series books. It's a parable. It's like 100 pages, but it's probably the best book I've ever read about building a keep in touch program with your client contacts. I read it 20 years ago when you had to send postcards. Now you can do it electronically, so it's much easier.
Nice.
That's a great one.
That is too. I've actually circled that sucker.
Yeah,
so that's gonna. But I did listen to the Gene Simmons book.
I don't know if you get that one on Audible though.
You did. Yeah. You can't get this one on
the one that I said. Yeah, right.
You mean you actually have to read it?
I think so. I don't know.
Maybe there's lots of pictures, Chris.
Oh, as long as it has pictures.
There's no pictures in the book, but it's only like 100 pages. Let's see if it's on
Or all right books. All right.
I'll look it up while you're checking on the next question.
All right. Number 2. What is your favorite feature of your house?
Of my house, like where I live?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can get it on Audible. I don't know if I have any favorite features in my house. That I live there, I don't know. I don't have any favorite features.
You don't like anything in your house?
You need a new house.
I shouldn't say that. I like my backyard because I like doing outdoor things. We have lights strung up, fire pit in the back.
Okay. See, there you go.
My wife insisted on buying that we haven't used yet, but she insisted on buying it.
There you go. Come on. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2.
I drink bourbon around the fire. It's nice.
There we go. See,
Yeah.
we just helped you uncover your favorite feature.
Yeah, we
and
grill a lot.
And it's bourbon driven, which we are
Definitely.
bourbon fun because you'll see in the background, we got a lot of bourbon.
Right.
All right. What is a customer service pet peeve of yours? Because we are really big about this because we are customer service
Freaks.
Thank you.
Not in terms of how I deal with customers.
No,
Like,
when you're out getting,
You're in a
service.
restaurant, you're at a Walmart. If you're at a Walmart, you go to a restaurant or you go to a hardware store, something that just pisses you off.
oh no, definitely lack of attention. Like they'll let you walk around the store like an idiot and don't even come up to say, nobody walks into my office, but if they did, well, actually people do walk into my office. I work in a co-working space. I go out front, somebody's sitting there. I say, somebody helping you. I go into stores, you can walk around for hours and nobody says anything, especially like Home Depot and stuff, stores like that. Restaurants, want the waiter to come over, give me a drink, get me going.
Attention. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Make me feel
It's like
important,
calling
man.
people back, right? If somebody reaches out to me, I don't get back to them within 6 or 8 hours, certainly within 24 hours, dead.
Dead to me if you don't get back to me in time.
Yeah, I'll have another attorney by then.
All right, last one. I want a DIY nightmare story. We like fire, we like flooding, we like people getting dismembered. I mean,
explosions.
Nightmare story. When we lived in Columbus, we were a young couple. We got married when we were living in Columbus. So at the beginning, we weren't married. We bought this home. We're going to rent a house, apartment. We moved out there from the East Coast. And they said, well, how much you want to spend? I said, I don't know, like $12.50 a month. That's what we were spending in New Jersey. They go, $12.50 a month. You can get a whole house for that. So we did.
You bought a house.
Down payment. So we bought a house, but it was a mess. My wife did a lot of the work when I was traveling. And I remember we had this big porcelain sink. And I was trying to do some of the plumbing and I slipped. This is a cap. I knocked out when I was a kid. And I slipped. And you remember, we just moved to Columbus. So my dentist, I don't have a dentist, I don't have anything. Bang. And it knocked it out of my mouth. My wife's like, oh my God.
He does it. He hits dismemberment. He loses a tooth trying to fix something out of sink. That's my boy.
Yeah. So
Mitch brought the power. You brought the heat. That's memorable.
It doesn't look
epic.
Because the good news is all my fingers, they've grown back, but they've all taken beatings. That's for sure.
I had this one chopped. This was chopped when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
They sewed it back on.
Actually, the biggest thing for me was always I use this. I call this my hand clamp, but I was doing shooting the gun, and it was always catch like the meaty part of my finger. So this guy over here, I can't even feel him anymore. So he's gone.
Like a real gun or like a nail gun?
Oh, nail gun. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Carpentry.
I got one of those too. I nailed my finger when I was working on something. Boom. The nail went right through my hand. I'm like, ah.
Yeah. That was good. Mitch, this has been awesome. I'll tell you what, you're almost redeeming lawyers one by one. Yeah. You may actually
give them that much credit.
Yeah. So we may actually kind of like you. I don't know. But everybody, I think.
But I'm just saying, don't like attribute that to the whole profession.
All right. He says, I will not speak for the whole profession, but you can like me.
Smart man.
Yeah.
If you didn't pick something up from this episode, you weren't listening, you weren't paying attention, go out there, make it a great day. You can do this. And by the way, don't get sued, don't get served. But when you do, just know you're part of the great company that is us entrepreneurs. We're out of here.